and welcome to the show. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty. I'm not sure if some of you listened to the other episode where I spoke about doing the entire episode and not having the microphone on. Ever since then, it's kind of like I have to test and test and retest just to make sure the microphone's actually plugged in because I don't want to have to do an entire episode only to realize that there is just terrible sound quality. So, um, I don't know. That's just a fun thing that I do before I start podcasts now. But I mean, I guess that's something I probably should have done in the beginning. I did it sometimes, but I wasn't really consistent with it, obviously, because that incident happened. But anyway, hope y'all have been doing well. It's been a long week. I mean, a long week, but also like a fast week. It's already September. I mean, this year is going by so fast. I mean, hopefully, by 2021, all this COVID stuff will be done and over with. I mean, I'm not really sure we're going to see the last of the coronavirus. It might just be like still floating around, in different capacities. So, I mean, that's neither here nor there, but I'm hoping by 2021 things are going to open up. We get some kind of normalcy back to our lives. I mean, nothing's ever going to be normal again, but I just hope that, something changes. I mean, we'll find out after the elections and just everything how the world's going to look. But either way, there's just a lot going on. This year's going by so fast. I hope all of you are doing well and staying sane. We're almost through it, so stay strong if you've kind of been struggling, and always ask for help if you have anyone around you that you feel comfortable asking for help for. So that's always something so important. I bought this huge burrito that I'm kind of staring at every now and then because, I mean, I swear this is the biggest burrito that I've ever seen in person. I mean, I used to watch the Food Channel, so I watched those like uh food contests where you eat like this giant thing and you get it for free or you get it your face on the wall or something crazy like that. Um, but yeah, the biggest burrito that I've seen like in person in my life, and it's the size of my forearm. It's crazy. They give you like a huge pan, like an entire pan. It's not even like one of those to go plates. It's like an actual pan to go for this burrito. It's huge. Anyway, I bought that because I didn't feel like cooking. I mean, I it kind of just got too late and I was so distracted all day, so I didn't cook. So I'm going to be smelling this burrito this entire time doing this podcast. If you hear me salivating a little bit, that is why. So anyway, um, there are actually a few things that I wanted to kind of bring up in case any of you are readers or anything like that. There were a few books that were kind of suggested to me, well, two books that were suggested to me recently, one by my mom and one by a friend of mine, and both of them seem like they're really, really interesting books to kind of just get into. I haven't picked up a book in a while. I mean, after my thesis, I was like, I don't want to read anything for at least another year, and I kept to that. I think I read a book like last year, and I mean, just saying that out loud, it sounds kind of weird. I think I read a book last year. Um, I've been so bad with reading books, so I've been wanting to kind of get back into reading something, and I want to read something that's I guess helps to better me. I used to always read books that were more fascinating, like fantastic in the way that they were, as far as just imaginative. I just made up a word, or just like like a story that's always kind of like keeps you captivated, where I kind of want to start going into books that kind of get me to think about the things that I want for myself, the things that I want to do myself, the things that I want to do for myself, and just and how to kind of improve myself in the ways that I think that maybe I'd want to. And I think that the best thing about books and reading books is that you are really experiencing like the journey that someone else is having. And something I do want to say is that like the self-help books and things like that, I mean, some of them are really, really great and they help people in so many different ways. But remember always that this is one person writing this book, and maybe this person that maybe has a lot of experience interacting with people, and they bring that in as like just more information in the book, so you kind of get a broader range of perspectives. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, it's coming from this one person's perspective. So when you read these books, when you take any type of advice from anyone in any type of capacity, you know see how true it is for you and see how right it feels for you, because that's what's going to matter in the end. It's going to be what matters to you and how it matters to you. So these two books that were suggested to me were, one of the books is Chasing Slow, Courage to Journey Off the Beaten Path. And this book is written by Aaron Loescher. And I mean, I'll just read the synopsis here because maybe it resonates with some of you, or maybe this is something that you may want to pick up if you decide to pick up a book like I am wanting to do. So this is the synopsis. In Chasing Slow, Erin turns away from fast and fame and frenzy. Through a series of steep climbs, her husband's brain tumor, bankruptcy, family loss, and public criticism, Erin learns just how much strength it takes to surrender it all and to veer right into grace. Life's answers are not always hidden where they seem. So this is I just read the synopsis. I didn't read too much more about it, but there was actually a quote that I went to the quote section because you can search books on Google and it'll give you like the overview, summary quotes, reviews on the books, and even like options to get the book. I'm looking at it right now, so I know exactly what it says. But this is a quote that kind of made me kind of think about some things that I believed in, and or just a different perspective on something that I've believed, as far as just kind of everything happens for a reason, that type of idea. And it's something that like I still hold, but this is something that made me think, and this is what I mean by where you take the words of someone else and you kind of just see what they mean for you. Maybe it gives you some new understanding, or maybe a different perspective on what other people believe and see when it comes to these things. So this quote is, "I do not know that everything happens for a reason. I simply know that everything happens." And this was a quote that it kind of like struck me in a different place, because again, like I've always believed that, well, I didn't always believe that everything happens for a reason, but I've started to believe everything happens for a reason. I do believe that events are connected. I mean, there can be no preceding event. I mean, there can be no like antecedent event if there's no preceding event. So there's there's always like some kind of connection. But as far as just the way that we create meaning and understanding in our lives, it can be very maybe dismissive even to say everything happens for a reason. And I've experienced that, and there are times where I know not to say those words because they're not the words that someone needs to hear or wants to hear in that moment. So I think that that might be a really good read. I mean, just from that quote, I think that there may be some things that I can glean from that. And maybe if you want to read it, if it sounds interesting for you, you can look it up. Again, that book name is Chasing Slow, Courage to Journey Off the Beaten Path, and that's written by Aaron Loescher. And that last name is Loechner, so Loechner, I think. The other book that was suggested to me, this was suggested to me by my mother a few weeks ago, and it's called Frequency, The Power of Personal Vibration, and this is by Penny Pierce. And I'm really happy I had a pop filter because the P's sounded pretty, I'm just saying a lot of P words. Anyway, so this is the summary for Frequency. Frequency shows readers how to feel their personal vibration, improve it, and use it to shift their life from ordinary to extraordinary. A simple shift in frequency can change depression to peace, anger to stillness, and fear to enthusiasm. So this was, something that my mother was reading, and it made me, of course, kind of happy, because this is something that, I kind of believe in, and it opened up that conversation of just, our beliefs and different ways of, things that maybe we don't exactly always have conversations about in our day-to-day lives. And that's also something that's really amazing when we share, like ideas like this or just topics like this. We can really understand so much more about other people, and even people that are close to us. Like, this is my mother, and like I love hearing like just these different things that, or ideas that maybe she's held with her for all this time, and I didn't know that until these conversations started happening, these topics started coming up, and now now I have a better understanding. So I think that that's something that we can all do to just kind of help us you know improve ourselves and our relationships with other people, and our understanding of the world around us and the world within us. So there's so much to that. Speaking of my mother, she's told me a story about my niece, speaking about something that I brought up in the podcast, and it made me realize that my niece is listening to this sometimes, and that I curse somewhat frequently. And I know that she's probably not you know new to hearing any curse words ever. I mean, I think she goes to public school, so I mean, I'm sure it's like something that maybe she's heard in many different domains. But at the end of the day, I guess I just want to be a little bit more mindful of the words that I say, because maybe you do want to listen to this with family members that prefer not to listen to profanity. I don't do it intentionally. It kind of just slips out. Sentence enhancers, I like to call them sometimes. But I will work on not doing it as much. So, I mean, if I get on a roll, it might just happen. But either way, those are just some book suggestions that I've been thinking about, and yeah, I'm gonna check them out. And when I do, I will obviously let all of you know, and I'll even post the covers on the Instagram page for all of you to kind of check that out if you forget the names or don't feel like rewinding it, because I know that I don't hold a pen and paper when I do podcasts or listen to podcasts. So that's just something for that. On another note, have any of you watched Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix? If you have, oh my gosh, like this show makes me so upset. I almost used profanity just now, but I just said I shouldn't. But it makes me so upset. Like there are so many times where I mean, I've spoken many times about my love of true crime, and when I listen to these stories and listen to the evidence that's being put out there, I'm like, how do you not see that this is the person behind it? And I guess like a lot of times there's red tape because of legal issues and different things that can block people from getting more information or getting more evidence. But I mean, geez, I mean, some of these are just like it's just so messed up because these stories are they're sad stories about people that seem like good people, or just like people where it's like it's unfortunate that this happened to them. And like you get all the clues, you get all the stuff for the investigations, and you kind of start piecing the stuff together, and you're like, this motherfucker did it. Sorry, I just okay. I mean, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna curse sometimes. It's gonna come out. I'm sorry, but it that's what happens. It's life. But I'm like, that dude did it for sure. But it's a show that's been making me angry to watch it, but I've also loved watching it. So check that out if you haven't. It's really good, and it's not like a drama series or anything like that. It's really just like true crime and stories of instances that have happened, that crimes that have happened that people just don't, like, they're still unsolved. It's in the title. It's Unsolved Mysteries. But outside of that, I'm gonna try to get to this. I'm gonna draw a topic from this box, get this going, and see what we have for next week. This week is seasons, and I think that I didn't really mention that at the beginning, but seasons. So holistic health is going to be the topic for next week, and I may have to hold this off because I have someone that will join me on the podcast for the specific topic for holistic health, and I think that they're going to be out of town this upcoming weekend, so I'm going to have to kind of schedule a time to speak about this and do this at some other point. But holistic health, it's really just the ways in which we work with our body and understand our body and our connection with all of it, like our body, our minds, everything, holistically. At least that's my understanding of it. My guest is going to give just a little bit more information about this when they come onto the show. But this has been something that I think that a lot of people have been starting to move towards, or wanting to move towards, like this more holistic style of health. And I think that that's kind of merges into plant medicines, like I spoke about in the plant medicine episode. But I think this will be a good topic, and maybe learn some new information about just what does it mean to have holistic health. And I don't think it necessarily means to you have to be vegan or anything, but I think it does like involve just a bit more, conscious awareness of what you're putting into your body, and how things that you put in your body influence your body in different ways. So more information on that when that comes. But again, this week the topic is seasons, and when we think about seasons, obviously we think about the seasons that we have in nature, and there is a lot of research that shows that like these seasons do influence our moods in different ways. I mean, there's seasonal depression, and there have been records of seasonal depression, or like the weather and light conditions and everything just influencing the way that we feel in our day-to-day lives, like since over 2,000 years ago. It's really just amazing, like the ways in which our environment does play a role in the way that we feel. But the way that I'm kind of like feeling with this episode, as far as just seasons, and I'm going kind of off of what my friend suggested, who suggested this topic, kind of said as far as what they felt they meant by seasons. And this is the seasons of just who we are, and how we are, and just the different ebbs and flows that we have in our lives that can correspond to seasons. In many ways, the experiences that we have throughout our lives can correspond with like just seasonal changes, like within ourselves. And this is not speaking about weather conditions or anything like that. This is seasons that are within us, when we have periods of happiness, where we have periods of sadness, where we have periods of just really being confused or not really knowing where to go next. And these are different phases that we go through in life where we think that we've passed it, we think that we've moved past that sadness, but it comes back, or it comes back in a different form, or we haven't had happiness, and then it comes back, and it's sunny again. And something I like to, I guess, as I thought about this topic, correspond these things to is, obviously, like the actual weather conditions, and or the seasons that we have in our environment. And summer, like more, happy, bright, adventurous, like outgoing, and just like basically the things that correspond to like summer activities. I think fall, you start to kind of slow down a little bit, maybe be in more of a contemplative state. You're more of just like, what is going to be next. And maybe there is some feelings coming up because winter's coming. And, a lot of times in winter, things are really slowing down. Things are, we're to ourselves a lot more. Things are darker. It's this time that's, very just unknown and very cold. And a lot of times that can be corresponded to like just sadness and feelings of just melancholy and things as that. And obviously spring, the reawakening, the rebirth of things, the growth of, excitement maybe for what's to come in the summertime. And I think that there are so many different interpretations. I guess you obviously can have your own interpretation of what the different seasons correspond to. And again, as I was thinking about this, I feel as though for me, I feel like I'm maybe in a fall stage, and that's like, I feel like I'm still very just like up, and like feeling like the summer type of energy and stuff like that. But I also feel like it's so slowly starting to slow down, and there's a lot of contemplation happening. There's a lot of just like very intrinsic work that's happening. And I notice this is something that happens to me every once in a while, every like now and then. So maybe that's one of my seasons. That's a season that I have where I get very contemplative, where I get very just like within myself, and wanting to focus on that mental growth that I want to have, or explore that mental space, because maybe there's something that's in there that I need to explore. And this is something that comes up for me, and maybe you notice something different for you, a different season that you're in. Maybe you're still in summer right now. Maybe you're really just having a blast, very outgoing, very just energetic, or whatever summer means for you. And maybe you're transitioning into different phases. But just like we can move to different climates, sometimes people have more happiness than others. Maybe people have more summertime than others. They live close to the equator or something like that, and they have summer for most of the year. Now there are other people that live up north in Alaska, and Greenland and Iceland, and there's so much darkness most of the year. So there can be also people that are just in a state of sadness for most of the time. What I'm trying to get at is that there are many different situations, there are many different seasons, and we're all in different places in the world. And our seasons are going to be different as well. Our seasons for who we are and how we move, and what we want for ourselves, it's going to be different, and it's going to be something that encompasses our entire lives. So how do we notice these seasons when they happen? How do we start to recognize the ways in which we can understand them, and cope with whatever that may be? When wintertime comes, we can put on a jacket, we can drink some soup, we can do these things that help to remedy that cold, we can do things to help to make us feel warm and comfortable. But we have to know that we're going to that stage, and the tools that we have to help us when we're in those states. And that's the thing that's so important, because we go through seasons in so many different aspects of our lives, where I spoke about maybe life in general, these seasons that these ebbs and flows that we go through within our lives, but also just within our mental emotional space, where throughout a day you can start off the day really excited, really happy, and then something, maybe some kind of reminder of something that brings you down. And then maybe a friend comes in and tries to cheer you up. Like, I'm getting all tongue tied. Maybe a friend comes along and tries to cheer you up, and now you're kind of like moving from that kind of sadness, that winter stage, into like a more spring stage. So I mean, like, again, like I'm using these similar, like these metaphors of seasons, but that's just because that's the topic name. But you get the idea of what I'm saying. These are seasons as far as just like different phases that we go along with, and it can be within a day, it can be within our lifetime, and it's just important for us to notice that. It can be within the relationships that we have with people. You can be very, very close to somebody, and then maybe you move away, and your connection starts to fade a little bit. Maybe it's in a different season of where it was before. And then years later, when you come back together, you're both different people. And in that relationship, maybe it comes back as if like nothing ever changed, but things have changed. So you may be in the same season, but remember, every season is going to be different, even if it's the same season. Every summer is going to be different. Last summer wasn't the same as this summer. It's going to change. So also recognize that even though we go through these different seasons, we may recognize similarities that tell us that, okay, this is where I'm at, but be aware that change has happened since the last time you were in that season. So recognize that maybe there are going to be some things that surprise you as you kind of explore where you're at. And I love that there was that quote in the beginning by, in the book, I forgot, Chasing Slow, where it was really like, I do not know that everything happens for a reason. I simply know that everything happens. And I think that kind of holds true in this situation where we may not know what all that season is going to bring, like whether it's, an immense sadness, winter phase that we're going through that brings us a lot of pain. We may recognize the different clues that are telling us that, okay, I'm going into a winter phase, but we may also experience things that are kind of just like happening, and we have to take them as they come, but notice that it's because of the change that's happened. It's because of the different circumstances that are bringing you into that season that you're going into. So recognize that it's within every domain of our lives and how we move, whether it's, again, the relationships that we have with other people, the relationship we have with ourselves, the just general feeling that we have in our lives as we're moving through it. These are all different seasonal changes, and the best thing that we can do for ourselves is not only notice when we're in a certain season, because that's so important to notice when you're in a season, because sometimes it can be just so confusing when you're just feeling really great, you're feeling amazing, and then out of nowhere you start feeling this weird feeling, almost like just anxiety or angst or just something being off. And it's you don't recognize that you're moving into a different place, you're moving into a different mental space, you're moving into a different season. And that's something to recognize. It's so important to recognize that. Otherwise, there's just an abundance of confusion. You start feeling it in your body, you start feeling it in different places, things don't feel right. And it's not until you notice where you're at that you can actually do something about it. But more importantly is to notice when you're about to go into a season so that you can prepare yourself, so you can mentally get yourself to a place where you're like, I'm going to start experiencing this. Maybe the people that are close to me that are open with wanting to speak to me about these things, and I can start reaching out to them. I can reach out to family members. I can meditate more. I can do what I need to do in order to be okay, because I know I'm moving into this emotional state, or this state of a different season. And I think that's something that, again, is so important to notice, because it's just as important as noticing when you're in it. But if you notice it before, if you notice the signs that are leading up to that, then you have more control over the situation, and there's not going to be that surprise. There's not going to be that feeling. I mean, maybe there is, because again, everything is different. So this time around, it may be a little different, but if you notice the signs, then you are going to be more well prepared than if you just get smack dab into the middle of winter and not have a jacket. It's like, this is something that we have to do for ourselves in order for us to be okay. Otherwise, we shut the world down. We shut the world out, and we can't be productive. We can't be productive with ourselves, the people around us, the people that we love and care about, with our jobs, if we are shutting everything out because we did not properly prepare for the things that we are feeling or about to go through. So, I mean, you can't really predict a bad experience. You can't predict like a traumatic experience from happening. So those are things that obviously are unavoidable. But if you start noticing that you go through different phases. I mean, we all go through different phases. Notice those phases that you're going through. I mean, it's so much better for allowing us to understand ourselves. And when we understand ourselves, again, like, it's another piece of that puzzle. I keep bringing this puzzle piece up, but that puzzle is always on the table, and pieces are always getting added to it, and pieces are always coming back off of it because it's not the right piece. So we are filling in that piece, we are filling in that puzzle, and we are figuring out what that image is, and what it's going to be. And maybe we never see fully what that image is, but as long as we keep picking up pieces, we feel more whole. We feel like we understand ourselves more. We feel like we can start maybe deciphering what we want for ourselves, or what we want that completed puzzle to look like. And that's the goal. It's the power is in your hands. So understand yourself and give yourself more power. So I don't know if that's kind of where my friend was wanting to go with that topic, or wanting me to go with that topic, but I mean, that's where I went. I hope that it was something that resonates with someone or anyone that may have felt this within themselves or thought this within themselves. I looked online to kind of see how many other people have kind of conceptualized our emotional states or the fluctuation in our emotional states this way. And there are a few people that, kind of say like we have emotional seasons, and that's something that's so true. But a lot of the stuff that I saw also just spoke about how just light and weather and temperatures and, like the actual seasons influence our body and our chemistry and our mental space. And that's very true. That's a very real aspect. So I guess if you look online, you can definitely get a lot of just different information on just like seasons and what people believe in seasons. I always love to just look at those things and read those articles and kind of see that perspective that someone else has, and again, like when we get that information from someone, when we see someone else's perspective, it's not for us to look through their eyes. It's not for us to be in their shoes. It's for us to take those words and interpret it for ourselves, interpret it for what it means for us, the utility of it that it has for us, and how do we want to integrate that with what we believe. If you want to believe that thing, then yes, go for it, but have some thought behind it. Have some thought for yourself behind it, because people say words all the time. Words are just words. They're not truth. They're not meaning until you create that meaning in it. So these books, check them out. Again, Chasing Snow by Aaron Lochner and Frequency by Penny Pierce. And I am going to post those on the Instagram pages. So yeah, hope this is something. Hope you recognize your seasons. You can send any thoughts, ideas, or topics to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can go to the Instagram page at everything.sunpodcast, where I'm going to post these books on there. And you can go to the Twitter page at Every Sun Podcast, or join the Facebook group at Everything Under the Sun with Ty. And that's all I got. Love you all, and I will see you next time.